All right, it's 11 o'clock. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. My name is Stephanie Fisher with the Education Department at Michigan Bankers Association. It's great to see you all. A few housekeeping tips before we begin. Please be sure to keep yourself muted. With our numbers on the webinar this morning, we will not be unmuting for questions. So please feel free to use the chat feature. You may also email me your question at sfisher@mibankers.com, and I will make sure to get that to Jack as well, but I will be moderating the chat throughout. We also are recording, and that will be sent out later today. You are in for a real treat. It's always a delight to welcome Jack Hubbard to Michigan, virtually today, and hopefully in person this fall. Jack will tell you a little bit more about that as well. But I'd like to introduce Jack. He is Chief Experience Officer of St. Meyer and Hubbard, a training and coaching firm located in the western Chicago suburbs. Jack is widely known as the Professor of Prospecting. He has personally trained and coached more than 70,000 bankers. Jack has brought his trust-based selling message to 49 states over the past 5 decades. His unique and value-focused view of LinkedIn have earned him thousands of connections and even more followers. A best-selling author and instructor at more than a dozen of the nation's top banking schools, including the Graduate School of Banking in Madison and the Perry Schools here in Michigan. His weekly Jack Rants have set a new standard of excellence for banking newsletters and blogs. He is also on the board of directors of St. Charles Bank and Trust, a $1.5 billion affiliate of Wintrust Financial Corporation. Welcome, Jack.
Stephanie, thank you. It's absolutely a thrill to be with you as well. And, I've traveled to 49 states to do work in trade associations, and still Michigan is #1 in my heart. I really enjoy coming over to Michigan, and we'll talk a little bit about what that's going to be happening in the fall. But I also want to use our time really wisely. This is about a 10-hour or more journey in a 1-hour bag. And so we're going to go fairly quickly, but as you mentioned, we'll be happy to answer any questions. I want to talk today about LinkedIn, the basics and beyond. So what about some basics? Those of you that know me, and I know a lot of people on here that I see that are friends and clients and people I've worked with over the years, know how big I am on the 5 C's of trust-based selling. And we're going to kind of connect that this morning real early to social collaboration. We're going to talk about the taskbar and some of the maybe unknown things that a lot of people pass over and don't think about. We're going to discuss a resource-based profile, something really different in terms of your profile. We're going to talk about how high-performing bankers make connections on a regular basis. That's some of the basics. What about beyond? We're going to talk about how important it is to export your connections, how you can target them for prospecting, and how you should do this probably once a month, and we're going to do it live today. We're going to talk about avoiding CAFs. Many of us on this call are old enough to remember when our mothers, if we were boys, threw away all of our very valuable baseball cards. My mom threw away 33 Mickey Mantle rookie cards that have allowed me to retire at this particular point. And the problem with a lot of LinkedIn connections is we view them as baseball cards. And so what we want to talk about today is how to avoid CAFs, the connect and forget syndrome. We're going to discuss thought leadership and how important that is. We're going to give recommendations. We're going to talk about sending video messages and how important it is during this time to be able to connect in a video-based way with your clients. It's free. And Stephanie mentioned I have a lot of connections, and I'm pretty proud of that. But that's one of the reasons why you have a lot of first-degree connections, is because you want to be able to communicate with them in a very, very intimate kind of way. And the last thing is a relatively new thing for LinkedIn. It's called events. We're going to talk about that. But speaking of events, we have some coming up, and I'm very proud to be one of the directors of a fairly new school over at Graduate School of Banking called the Sales and Marketing School. This is for retail salespeople, commercial salespeople, business banking, sales managers. We have the best of the best in terms of faculty. Many of you on this call know one of your statehood's veterans, Eric Cook. He is a tremendous facilitator, and he's one of our instructors, as well as many, many others. And it's going to be live at Madison, Wisconsin, at the Fluno Center, September 22nd to September 27th through October 2nd this year. And we're very excited about that. And I'm going to be one of the instructors. I'll be over there all week. And what's really neat about this is two things. Number one, we're the only marketing school on the planet this year in banking, because a lot of others have had to cancel, unfortunately. And number two, we limit it to 50 students. So it's a real intimate way to look at, if you're a marketing person in community banking, getting to that C-suite, and if you're a salesperson or a sales manager, getting to that next level of your career as well. But I'll be in Michigan too. On the 27th of October, I'll be in Michigan doing a one-day program on power prospecting. We've done this for 5 years in a row. It's sold out 5 years in a row over in Lansing. And the next day, I'm going to do effective business development calls. So I'll be spending a little time with Stephanie and hopefully a lot of you in Michigan as well. So one of the things that we did yesterday was, thank you for a lot of you connecting with me, we took a look at your profiles. We took a look at every single person on here, and we looked at your profiles. And here are some, now I'm not going to give you any specifics. I'm not going to tell anybody how many Mark Anderson has or Dave Woods or anybody like that, but I am going to say this, that as a group, 83% of you we found on LinkedIn. Some of you are in the witness protection program. We couldn't find you on LinkedIn. You must be going under an alias. 59% have an about section, and that is one of the most important things to have on LinkedIn. That's a very small number, although I will say that it's good for banking. Bankers have typically about 20 to 30% in the about section. 92% of you have a photo on LinkedIn. That's critical. But only 35% of you have a background image. And we're going to talk about what those are today and why they're so important. From a connections perspective, here's where you are. 1% of you had 0. 14% are up to 100 connections. 32 up to 300. 14% up to 500. And 39% of you is what I call LinkedIn-licious, because you have over 500 connections. And that's a very important number. Now, if you are in the 100 mode, don't just run out and try to connect with everybody you possibly can. But if you're in a business development mode and you want to be a thought leader, 500 is a really critical number. So we talked about those 5 C's. What are they? Well, in sales and in LinkedIn, the 5 C's are very simple. Conversations is the most important thing you sell. It's the most important thing you have. It's under your control. Everything else is a commodity. You're all about the same to me if you're bankers. I know there are some non-bankers on here too, but you're a commodity in your industry as well. In order to be able to stand out, conversations are critical, and you can have those on LinkedIn. You've got to make people curious. You've got to make them want to connect with you, want to engage with your content, like, comment, etc., and to follow you. Very important. Collaboration is absolutely critical. It's not connect and try to get coffee. I deconnect with those people right away, and we're getting more and more of those during this time of when we're kind of in our home offices together. Collaboration simply means I connect, I provide value, we have conversations, and eventually we get together. But it's not connect and coffee. Next thing is customization. You are 82% more likely to have someone connect with you on LinkedIn if you have a customized request for connection, which is what I did with all of you yesterday. The last thing is connectivity. You indeed need to connect with as many people as you can. Clients, prospects, centers of influence, colleagues, and even competitors. Absolutely competitors. A lot of people don't do that because they're afraid. We need to connect with our competitors. And the last thing is, I put it in parentheses, but Stephanie and all of you who know me know that coaching is the real key. No one is going to be optimizing their LinkedIn process unless a coach is there willing to help them. Well, I wanted to start today on LinkedIn on the taskbar. This is where, when you open up your LinkedIn, this is what you tend to see. You've got your home feed over on the left-hand side. This is where you get all of your articles, your profile views, how many profile views have you had. In your network, we look at pending connections and managing invitations. I left jobs off for the obvious reason. Messaging is really, really important. See messages that you have sent. See messages that people have sent to you. You can archive them. One of the most important things for me is notifications. You get notifications on your first level connections on birthdays, anniversaries, promotions, job changes, and interesting posts. And here's one thing to remember. If you get a job change, if you get a CFO who's moved from one company to another, that's a really good thing. You need to highlight him or her by congratulating them, but also know this. The new CFO who's moved from one company in Michigan to another, that also means that that old company is now looking for another CFO. Don't forget to get deep and wide in the previous company so that you can find out who that new CFO is. Then there's me, that little thumbnail where settings and privacy and the help menu take place. And then there are things like Sales Navigator. I'll answer the question right now. Sales Navigator is the best prospecting tool that Al Gore ever thinks he invented. It isn't inexpensive. It's $1,000 a year. Here's the question. What's the price of ignorance in terms of prospects in your territory? What's the price of ignorance in terms of people moving one job to another? What's the price of ignorance of not having the ability to have 5,000 leads that you can follow and 1,500 companies? Sales Navigator, if you're active on LinkedIn and you really prospect using LinkedIn, Sales Navigator is absolutely a must. Unfortunately, we don't have time to talk about it today, but I think I could talk Stephanie into maybe another one of these later in the summer to talk very specifically about Sales Navigator. So that's the taskbar. Let's go out to LinkedIn and take a look at the taskbar. Well, we'll come back to it in a second. So the taskbar is really important in a lot of different kinds of ways. And a lot of people say to me, well, I look at LinkedIn every once in a while. This is a daily activity. This needs to be part of your work style. I always like to do this in my early morning hours, the first 15 or 20 minutes of the day. Who's connected with me? What are some notifications? Who can I highlight? Who can I congratulate? Those are kinds of things that I really like to do. And then there's the privacy settings. So this is a really important part of LinkedIn. So let's go live to LinkedIn. I want to highlight 3 really important things for you on the privacy settings. And you access this through the taskbar, through your little thumbnail photo. Now understand this, that when you join LinkedIn, LinkedIn has defaults, just like any other software. You have to go in and customize this for you. I want to show 3 things that are really important from questions I get a lot on the taskbar. Here's the first one. Who can see your connections? The LinkedIn default is your connections. Here's what that means. Anybody that you're connected with at the first and second level becomes visible to anyone that you're connected with at the first level. So let's say Stephanie and I are connected at the first level, and I put your connections down as I have. Stephanie, because she's connected to me at the first level, can also see all of my second level, her second level connections, which are my first level connections that she's not connected to. Now, a lot of people say, well, I don't want my competitors to see all my first level and second level connections because they may know that they're my clients. Well, my answer is, if you're not doing a good enough job with your clients, you're at risk anyway. The other setting is only you. If you click only you, here's what happens. All of my Stephanie's second level connections to her, my first level connections that she's not connected to, if I click only you, they will disappear from Stephanie's radar. She will only be able to see those people that we are jointly first level connected to. That is an important setting. It's something that you have to have a philosophy around. What do you want people to see? Do you want people to go to your profile and see all of your connections, or do you not? If you do, your connections is the option. If you don't, only you is critical. The next thing I wanted to talk about is story viewing options. This is where a lot of people, I think, make a big mistake on LinkedIn. You have 3 options under story view. And what story view simply means is when someone goes to your profile or you go to theirs, this is what they see. I like people to know that I've been to their profile. It's really important to me. I click on 30 to 50 profiles a day because I want people to come back and connect with me, which many times they will do. So when I do that, I want to keep Jack Hubbard up there. But if I didn't want Jack Hubbard and I said, well, you know, I'm going to look at a competitor and maybe I'd like to hire somebody from that competitor, I could go more private or underwater. I could go and I could become someone at St. Meyer and Hubbard, or I could be a completely anonymous LinkedIn member. Now, if you're looking for a job, if you're looking for someone to hire, going anonymous is probably a pretty good idea, but here's the problem. A lot of times when people go into the anonymous mode, they forget to come out of the anonymous mode. The challenge is when you go to someone's profile as anonymous, they won't see who you are. The problem is when someone comes to your profile, you won't see who they are either. So you need to turn on something to be as visible as you can based on what you want to do on LinkedIn. For me, I always keep my name and headline in the front of the focus. The last thing I want to show you is get a copy of your data. This is a site where most people have never, ever been, and it's absolutely critical. I want you to imagine this. You've amassed 11,000 LinkedIn connections and LinkedIn goes down or gets hacked or something happens. Your 11,000 connections are yours, but they're on LinkedIn's server. So you need to have a backup. It's almost like a backup plan. How do you do that? You click on get a copy of your data. Now LinkedIn will say, all right, what do you want? What of this data do you want? Well, I'm only going to go to my connections. I do this about once a month, so I haven't done it in a while, so I'm going to do it today. I just click on connections and I request an archive. When I do that, what LinkedIn is doing now is to process this, and I have to go in and I have to share my password. When I share my password, which I won't do now, but if you share your password and hit done, LinkedIn it'll take about 10 minutes, and LinkedIn will actually send you a full copy of all of your connections. And it will go in descending order. So it will go from the very first connection you had all the way up to your most recent connection. And I'll show you a little later what you can do on this. It's absolutely amazing and incredibly, incredibly powerful. Okay, so let's go on. Let's go back to our LinkedIn, our deck here. And now I want to talk a little bit about your profile. This is your calling card, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This is your brand. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't recognize that when they're sleeping, someone at 3:17 in the morning who's not happy with their current bank, as has a lot of times happened in this PPP situation, they sit up straight in bed at night and go, you know what? I need a new bank. I need a new banker. What do? They go out to LinkedIn and they look at profiles. And if your profile is like everybody else's, you're going to be in the also ran category. What we want to talk about is taking your profile from a resume to a resource, and we'll discuss some of the key elements of that as well. So this is your brand, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. First thing we want to talk a little bit about is positioning yourself as a thought leader. How can you become a subject matter expert and a thought leader around this? Second thing is to attract and engage your targeted buyers, to get them excited, ultimately to take your call, but first to make a connection with you. Ultimately, remember this, it's not about you. This is not leading to your solution. It's not with your solution. So anything about banking, And all the products that you have, leave it out of your profile. It's irrelevant. What you want to do is to get somebody excited because you are different. It's vendor agnostic value. It doesn't matter who you're going after. You want to show anybody that you would want to bank with that you can help them vendor agnostic. And what simply that means is you don't have to target manufacturing or the auto industry or hotels or not-for-profits. It's vendor agnostic because anybody can see your profile 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Keywords, SEO is something that a lot of people have heard about. SEO is search engine optimization. And a lot of LinkedIn experts will tell you, fill your profile with SEO because when somebody looks for banking, your Google ranking goes up and it'll put you toward the top of the list. I think I would rather do this from an authentic perspective and not a keyword stuffing perspective. I used to be a paper boy. A lot of you did. Paper boys, paper girls. And I remember when I was, I'd have to collect those little tabs, and it's 40 cents a week, and you get them to pay in advance because you get a little more commission that way, and you're folding the papers and things like that. So a lot of you remember those days. You also probably remember the days, and maybe you still do it, when you go into a 7-Eleven or a party store and you see the papers sitting there. What you're really seeing is above the fold, and that's what's really important around your profile, at least to get started, to get people's attention and to resonate with their challenge. Your headline is really critical. You know, people are paid millions of dollars to write great headlines, and I want that headline to grab somebody and say, boy, I really resonate with that challenge. You want to create curiosity. You want them to move on and read more. So here is the top of the fold. This is a very important part of your LinkedIn profile. So we'll go through this in pretty good detail, but you'll notice something about Jack Rants that Stephanie already alluded to. You'll notice my headline over on the lower right. Here's a mistake that a lot of people make in their headline. They put the name of their bank or company in their headline. We need to stop that. You have 120 characters that you can use in your headline. Notice over on the far right-hand side here, it says, I work at St. Meyer and Hubbard. I don't need to tell people in my headline that I work at St. Meyer and Hubbard. So we're going to talk more about the headline in a second. What's really important now, this is relatively new for LinkedIn. LinkedIn is trying to help you personalize your profile background and make it more visually attractive, create brand recognition. There used to be, up until a little while ago, that LinkedIn would not allow you to have any logo, any photos of your bank or your company, anything like that. That's all changed now. So if you go to Centir Bank, go to anybody that works at Centir Bank and look at or go to their homepage, look at Centir Bank. They have a beautiful picture of their great buildings. Those are available to you now, and it helps create brand image. So that's up here. That's up here in at the top. That's really, really important. So let's talk about the headline. The fact, so I was doing a LinkedIn class live when we were doing classes live. Remember that? A long time ago. And so I was doing this LinkedIn class live, and a commercial lender came up to me and said, so are you the instructor of this class? I said, yeah. This is in Connecticut, by the way. And he says, yeah, I got to come to this class. The president said I got to come to this class. He said, my LinkedIn stuff sucks. And I said, well, I can tell you're really excited to be here. And he said, yeah, I got to have a headline. And I said, well, what's your headline? He said, Senior Vice President of Commercial Lending. I said, well, he said, what do you think of that headline? I said, well, there's 1.4 million of you in the United States. If you'd like to commoditize yourself, you've done a really fine job. He said, well, all right, what should the headline be? So I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you a headline. You got to use it for 30 days, and we'll see how it works. And he said, okay, as long as it isn't stupid. I said, okay, here's your headline. Banker in charge of getting things done in Stamford, Connecticut. He said, does that sound stupid to you? He said, yeah, it's a little, but it's intriguing. I'll put it on there. So he put his headline on there, banker in charge of getting things done in Stamford, Connecticut. A week later, somebody called him and said, prove it. He said, what are you talking about? The guy says, well, prove that you're the banker in charge of getting things done, because I've never worked with a banker like that before. The second week, he got 2 calls. The third week, he got 3 calls. He is the banker in charge of getting things done in Stamford, Connecticut. Here's the point. Commercial lending, branch manager, owner, senior vice president, we all got these wonderful titles, and they're very, very important from a food chain perspective. From a LinkedIn perspective, they're a lot less important. What I want in my headline is A, something actionable, a verb. I want it to be moving. And the second thing is, I want to tell people what I can do for them. I help bankers hold trust-based relationship development conversations, and I've been developing performance cultures in banking since before there was color TV. So I've been around a long time. I'm a veteran, and looks like it in the photo as well. And it's differentiated. I don't need to tell them I work at St. Meyer and Hubbard. The headline says it all. So the next thing I want to talk about is your photo. By the way, I always get questions on, okay, this background thing. What about this background thing? Where can I find backgrounds? Google, LinkedInbackgrounds.com. Go to Google and type in backgrounds for LinkedIn. Go to linkedin.com/backgrounds. Get a whole bunch of them. You got photos that you've taken of the bank. Does your marketing department have something from a branding perspective? Anything you want to do is really, really important there. But here's what's also important. Not having an extra arm or protruding from your shoulder, not wearing a wedding dress, not wearing a baseball uniform, not holding a Budweiser, not having your dog there or a fish. This is an individual professional photograph. This is a professional site. Doesn't mean fish or beer or dogs or wedding dresses in any way are bad. They're just wrong for LinkedIn. Your photo should have a gray or a white background. You should be facing forward and coming into the photo, but not too much. Good eye contact and a nice smile is really critical. I have a bank, a community bank. We only work with community banks. And I have a community bank that every year does a LinkedIn photo day. Every new banker that comes in, or any banker that wants a new photo, they hire a professional photographer, and now the bank gets what it wants, which is that personal image, that personal brand that becomes so important. If not, go get a professional photographer to take your photo. It's really, really pretty simple. All right, the next thing I want to talk about is the About section of your profile. This is an area where you could really, really improve. I want to get my visitors curious. That's first of all. I want to teach them something new, and I need it to be in the first person. I want them to say, this is somebody that can help me. It's really important. And I want to do this through a 3-2-1 approach. Really important. Let's go over to LinkedIn. So this is my About section. Here's how I did this. I went to 3 clients and I asked them 3 questions. Why did you select St. Meyer and Hubbard? Since you selected St. Meyer and Hubbard, what have we done for you? What would you tell someone about St. Meyer and Hubbard if they contacted you? That's the 3. Then I went to my manager, Bob, my business partner, and I say, tell me some things about me that you've noticed over the 30 years you've known me from a management perspective. Then I went to the most important person in my life, my spouse of 48 years, and I said, tell me a few things that people should know about me that you can actually print. And I took all of those things and I put it in a Word document. You've got about 2,500 characters that you can use. So I type up all those notes and I wrote my story. This is your story. It should be written in the first person, not the third person. And it should be energizing enough where people say, wow, this is a person I need to talk to. But notice this, see where all caps? LinkedIn only allows one typeface. They don't allow bolds and they don't allow italics. So the only way to get people's attention is that first line needs to be a dramatic headline and it needs to be in all caps. Relationship managers in banking are history. If that doesn't make you curious, about what that
Hey,
means.
Jack,
Yes.
we
Yes,
can't
Steph.
see your screen.
You can't see my screen?
We're still looking at the deck.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Well, they can't see my
I can see your mouse moving, but I can't see anything but the LinkedIn deck.
That's interesting. All right, we're trying to fix that. Apologize for that.
No worries. Thank you.
I'll go back to this stuff. We'll just talk through some stuff. So, and I'm sorry you can't see it, but if you wanted to go, here's an easy way to follow along. Just go to my, thank you for the comment. Just go over to my LinkedIn profile if you want, and you can kind of follow along with this. But basically what I say in my about is that relationship managers in banking are history. They're all caps. And then what I'm doing is I'm using the 5 C's of trust-based selling, and I actually have a quote from a client about why they in fact should work with St. Meyer and Hubbard. So you've got about 2,500 characters. Use those really wisely. And for those of you that don't have an about section, which is many, many of you, I would urge you to consider changing that approach. All right, let's move on. There's another relatively new section, and it's called Featured. What Featured allows you to do is to upload or add a link. You can add PDFs, GIFs, JPEGs, PowerPoint presentations, and where they are located is on the bottom of your About section of your profile. So if you go to my profile, what you will see are several articles. One is from my old baseball coach, Ron Kalina. There's several of them there. Anything that you've got from a banking perspective, whether that be profitability related issues or a promotion or something new at the bank, put that under your profile, and it's extremely, extremely easy to do. That featured section draws people and creates a level of thought leadership and attention that becomes really, really important. So I'm glad we did this, because this is actually, I wanted to show you this on LinkedIn, but we can show you this here. This is someone you should be following. Her name is Bryn Tillman. On the profile, you can not only have your About section, but you also have a section of experience. Now, a lot of people say, well, this is where I've got to put my resume. Because remember what we talked about. The profile really needs to go from resume to resource. You want people to see your profile as a resource. The experience section is also not a resume. It's resume-like. So notice what Bryn Tillman has done here. She's got her title and her company, and by the way, really, really important for you to, when you put your company up there, to put your company logo up in the upper left-hand corner like she's done with the social sales link. Then what's your 30-second commercial? What do I want people to walk away from? Say, I need to talk to this woman. So she's got a 30-second commercial, which is followed by what Bryn does. And then the last thing is the call to action. If you're interested, if your sales team is ready to take its sales efforts to the next level, et cetera, give me a call. Well, how do I do that? There's a lot of ways. Email me, phone me, message me on LinkedIn, et cetera. So I guess what I'm saying to you all, and I'm sorry you can't see some of the screenshots that I was hoping to show here. I guess what you need to think about is, how do I make sure that I've invested enough time in me and my brand, my personal brand, to be able to get people excited enough to stay on my profile, to connect with me, and to say, you know, here's a banker that I should be talking to. Does anybody have any questions? Stephanie, any questions come up at all at this point? All right, I'll keep going. So unfortunately, we can't see this live, but I wanted to talk to you about recommendations. Recommendations reside in the lower part of your profile. A recommendation is simply Stephanie, for example. So if Stephanie reaches out to me and says, you know, Jack, you've done a really good job for Michigan bankers over the year. Do you mind if I write a recommendation? So no, Stephanie, that would be absolutely fantastic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my recommendations page, and Stephanie's going to reach out and write a recommendation for me. But let's say I want to do it myself. I want to reach out to Mark. And I'll say, Mark, you and I have known each other for a long time, and you said some nice things about me over the years. Would you mind writing a recommendation for me? No, that'd be fine, Jack. So if you scroll down to your own personal profile, if you're on LinkedIn, you scroll down to your own personal profile, it's under skills and endorsements, and it's recommendations. The more recommendations you have, the better. If you want to get a recommendation from someone, a colleague, a client, whoever it might be, you reach out, click on ask for a recommendation. What will come up is, who do you want to ask? And you just simply type their name into the recommendation bar, and up will pop a name. It has to be a first level connection. Another reason to connect with as many people as possible. So if I type Stephanie Fisher in here, and I click on it, yeah, I know you can't see this. What will come up is, what is my relationship to Stephanie? Well, Stephanie was a client of ours. And what was my position at the time? I was the Chief Experience Officer at St. Meyer and Hubbard. Once those two things, and they're drop-down menus, once those two things are in place, click on next, and then I say, hey, Stephanie, could you write me a recommendation? That's a generic thing from LinkedIn. You can customize that in any way, but I'm going to send this to Stephanie just to show you how this might work. So I've sent this off to Stephanie. Now she will get this recommendation request from me, and she has to make a decision. If she doesn't know me very well, if she isn't comfortable with making recommendations, or, and this is a very important point, if Michigan Bankers prohibits her from making a recommendation, she will not be able to do that, and she'll let me know that. So I wanted to pause here and just suggest one thing that's really important to you. And that simply is know your social media policy. That is number one. Before you do anything on LinkedIn, you need to know what your social media policy is, what you can and cannot do. Because here's why, as it relates to recommendations. Please know this, that when you recommend someone, and you let's say Stephanie says, I'd be happy to write you a recommendation. She writes that recommendation for me. I accept the recommendation. It goes on to my profile. But here's the other thing you need to know. It also goes on Stephanie's profile. So what I can do is I can go in and see who Stephanie has recommended. So Stephanie works with a lot of different sales training companies. One of them is my really good friend, Ned Miller. Let's say that Stephanie recommends me, and Ned goes into Stephanie's recommendations and he sees that she's recommended Jack Hubbard. He might get mad and say, well, Stephanie, why haven't you recommended me? Now, it certainly wouldn't prevent Ned from doing any more work with Michigan Bankers, but there's that emotional kind of thing. But think of it this way. Let's say you have 5 CPAs that you work with that give you recommendations during the year. And you've recommended one. You've written a recommendation on one. What if those 4 other CPAs see that you've done that for that one CPA and haven't done it for them? What would that cause them to maybe not want to do? It's something for you to really consider. I do know a couple of banks who in their social media policy prohibit the banker from making or accepting recommendations for that very reason. So recommendations is really, really powerful in a lot of ways. Your past supervisors can recommend you, your clients or prospects, your coworkers, or even outside partners. But just know a couple of things. The more recommendations you have, the more LinkedIn-licious you are, the more you have a thought leadership profile. The second thing you need to know is the more recommendations you have, the more people are going to be able to see what you've done and what they've recommended. So just be careful about that and know that it needs to be in your social media policy as well. All right, let's talk about your network. Creating proactivity around your connections is absolutely critical. So people say, well, give me a little sense of your connections. So here's you over in the far left-hand corner. You have connected with people who are in effect now your next door neighbors. And you go knock on their door and you can borrow a cup of sugar or a chainsaw or whatever you want to do, or you might want to invite them over to dinner. And it's pretty easy because you can do a lot of things once they're a first degree connection. You can message them, you do a lot of different things. So that first level connection becomes really important. Who's that second level connection? Well, they're not on the same block you are and with your first level connection, but they're down the block. They're pretty close. And those people are really very important to you. With my 11,200 connections, I have over 28 million second level connections that I could connect with around the world. LinkedIn only allows you to have up to 30,000 connections right now, but those second level connections are very, very important to you, and they can be used as introduction fodder from your first level connections if you have that kind of relationship. Then there's the third level connection. Oh, they're not next door and they're not down the block. They may be even in the next county. I don't even worry about my third level connections. I've got plenty of second level connections. So those two things are the most important things. So how do I engage? How do I engage with all these people? How do I find people that I want to connect with? Well, the first thing is, who's viewed your profile? I go to who's viewed my profile sometime 30 to 50 times a day. I want to see who's seen my profile on LinkedIn. Sure, I'm obsessed with LinkedIn. Yes, I do have a life, but it's really important because I teach LinkedIn. I'd better be doing the kinds of things that I suggest. Here's the challenge. LinkedIn provides 3 different kinds of service. The first is the free, and many of you are on the free service, and that's fine. The second is premium. It's about $50 to $60 a month, but it opens up a lot of things. With the free profile, with the free LinkedIn service, the last I heard, you could only see the last 5 people that have viewed your profile. What if 50 people have come to your profile because you got a promotion or you changed jobs and you want to know who came to your profile? You're going to miss out if you have that free service. And I can tell you, Microsoft is constricting and constricting. They're trying to get people to build revenue through LinkedIn, and they're taking more and more away from the free service. The second is premium. If you get a premium service, you can see anyone who's viewed your profile in the last 90 days. That's really, really good. And then the third and the most expensive is Sales Navigator. It's about $100 a month. Life opens up to you if you do that. But who's you viewed your profile? If somebody comes to your profile, that's a real good opportunity to connect with them. When you go out and you go to business meetings, and we're going to do that again. We're going to do Chamber of Commerce meetings. We're going to do Michigan Bankers. You're going to do evening sessions and have big Chamber of Commerce hoop-de-doos. And that's all really good. Either before the session or after, connect with those people that you have met that night. I was telling Stephanie, even at Graduate School of Banking, where there are 200 freshmen and 200 juniors that I teach, and I teach an elective, I'm connecting with every single person that I possibly can on LinkedIn proactively because I just want to have that level of visibility as an instructor. I think it's really important. You also want to go to and connect with people who have liked, shared, or commented on your content that you've liked. So let's say you've shared a piece of content. This morning, I shared a video on the Graduate School of Banking. My buddy Tom Hirschberger and I. I'll go back right after this webinar and I'll look and see how many people have liked it. I'll click on the number of likes, and anybody that's a second level connection to me that's liked that content, I'm going to try and engage with them and I'm going to try to connect with them. That's how you build your network. And if somebody liked your content, you have some level of symmetry with them. Don't fall into this problem. We do this connect and forget syndrome. We go back and we look at the number of people that we've connected with, and we just forget that those people that connected with us 2 years ago. But they connected with us for a reason. I'm going to show you how to make that a little easier for you. Respond quickly to connection requests. So we won't be able to show you this, unfortunately, on LinkedIn today, but Anybody that tries to connect with me is up in the connections tab or in your network tab. I'm looking at that quite often to see who has reached out to me or who I've connected with. That's really important to be proactive. People are connecting with you for a reason. I was doing a LinkedIn class live, and I went to this mortgage banker, and so she was kind of working on her LinkedIn profile. And I said, look, there's 150 connection requests you have that you haven't done anything with. She goes, I don't know what to do. I don't know whether I should ignore them. I don't know whether I should connect with them. She was completely frozen with 150 people who wanted to reach out. Please look at that every day and make a determination as to what your criteria is for selection. And that's really important because this can be yours and yours alone. I have an easy criteria. I connect with anybody who's a banker, number one. Anybody who is a recruiter, I don't connect with. No offense to recruiters, they're all great people, but I'm not looking for a job. I haven't been looking for one in over 30 years. So I'm not going to start looking for one now. And I don't connect with anyone outside the United States, only because we don't do business outside the United States. That's the kind of criteria you need to be thinking about. But here's what I unfortunately see a lot of bankers do. I don't know Mary Smith. I click ignore. Once you do that, Mary Smith can't connect with you again or try for at least a month. And there may be some opportunity there. I'll tell you a quick story. So I'm doing a class in Indiana, and I was talking about connection requests, and a banker raises his hand and says, I got to tell you a horrible story. He says, I'm in Indianapolis, and somebody reached out to me named, let's call her Mary Smith. And I looked at Mary Smith, and she was from Seattle, and I didn't recognize her, so I deleted her and ignored her connection. Didn't connect. But 30 days later, I'm at a Chamber of Commerce function, and this woman comes up to me and says, hi, you may not remember me. I'm Mary Smith. He goes, hi, Mary. I don't know you. And she goes, well, you won't remember me as Mary Smith. I was Mary Brown, and I went to high school with you. And he goes, oh, Mary Brown. She goes, yeah, I was in your chemistry class. He goes, wow, what are you doing here, et cetera. She goes, well, you see, I was in Seattle, and my husband is a hospital administrator. And we were moving back to Indianapolis, and he didn't know anybody, but he wanted to look at banks to probably move all of the hospital relationships. And I reached out to connect with you, and I didn't hear back from you, so I reached out to another banker. So here's what I would suggest. Terrible story. I would suggest that if people are trying to connect with you, look down their profile. Who else are you connected to that they're connected to? What do they do? If they're just looking to do some selling of you, they want to sell you toilet paper or Windex or branch signage, and that comes through, you can deconnect with them immediately. But don't just ignore them out of hand because you don't remember their name or maybe they're in Seattle. Be real careful about that. We're going to talk about buyer mapping before we go because it's something that where bankers are making a huge, huge misstep around trying to proact to prospects. And the last thing is exporting your connections. So we talked about that before, and I'm very sorry you couldn't see my LinkedIn screen when I was doing this. But fortunately, we have a slide here. So let's go back. I want to export my connections, and I want to have in my file, in a file that I call LinkedIn connections on my computer, I want to have all 11,200 and some connections, all the way from the very first connection in August of 2006, all the way up through right now. When I do that, I can upload it to an Excel spreadsheet. When I do that, I can organize it. I can organize it by company, by position, by when they connected with me, by industry, by all kinds of different things. Here's the bad news. LinkedIn used to provide email addresses for this as part of it. It doesn't do that anymore. But it still allows you to do some kind of manipulation of data to say, who do I want to proactively reach out? Whether that's be by position, CFO, or whether it's by company, or whether it's by when they connected with me. So one of the things I urge you to consider is once a month, make sure you are uploading your connections and exporting them into a spreadsheet. So buyer mapping. So this is an area of LinkedIn, and you can do this with the free service. And we won't be able to show it to you today, unfortunately, but I'll give you some of the parameters. Buyer mapping is simply to be able to look at who you want to proact to around LinkedIn. That's one great thing about LinkedIn. You can do it by title, you can do it by area, you can do it by zip code. Who do I want to talk to as my ideal prospects? And how can I record all of those filters and make sure that I have them so that I can watch them on an opportunity basis? We call that buyer mapping. Now, how do I do that? Well, I develop search strings. There's a mathematician. His name is Dr. Boolean. Dr. Boolean developed search strings. He developed this process many, many years ago using a mathematical equation combined with keywords to eliminate and add to. So what the result is here is a list of your ideal buyers, those people who you want to really look at. Now, this is actually pretty easy. So there's 3 words you need to be sensitive to, and they need to be capitalized. The word or. So I want to do the owner of the company or the CEO of the company because they could be very different. But I want LinkedIn to find those people for me in my area. And I want the owner and the CEO of the company. So I'm going to include both of those terms. My list is going to be bigger, and that's fine, but I want to make sure that I get it all. I want not. I want the owner, not the CEO. So I'm eliminating CEOs from this particular list. All I want is the business owner. If you go in and you design a filter, a buyer map for this, you will be able to get all those people into one place. And here's the other really cool thing. LinkedIn will continue to add to that list every time someone that meets your criteria is found. They'll add it to your list, so it's additive. So a lot of people say, well, I spend thousands of dollars every year on lists. My question is, why? You've got every list you want. It's right here. These are living, breathing human beings that are doing business. But here's something that's really, really important. For any word that's multiple words, anything over 1 word, you need to put quotation marks in. Business owner. Because if you don't, you'll get all the words of business. Anyone that has business in their profile, you'll get that. And anyone that has owner in their profile, you will get that. So I realize that you can't see this, but I'm going to walk this through with you so that you can see it. So you have your own LinkedIn profile that you could bring up. So here's how you do it. You go to the taskbar, and up in the upper left-hand corner, you'll see the word search. Click on search, and what you'll find is a little looking glass there, a little glass. You click on that, and up will pop a screen that has people, jobs, content, more, connections, locations, current company, and all filters. Click on all filters. Now, what's good news about this is recorded, so even though you can't see my screen, you'll be able to do this later. So you've clicked on all filters. Now you've got something on a screen that says all people filters. You're going to click on your first and second level connections, or just your first level connections, or your second degree connections. I've clicked on both of those. Then you're going to go over to your region. And if I typed in Greater Detroit area, I click on that. So now I've added to my filters. Then what I'm going to do is scroll all the way down to the bottom where it says title. And I'm going to type in CFO and hit return. And let's see how many we get. Let me move this over a little bit so I can get to where I want to go. You have to hit apply. When I hit apply, here's what I find. For CFOs that are my first or second level connections in the greater Detroit area, I have 128 people. Now, what I can do with those 100, that might not seem like a lot, but really, how much time do you have to prospect these days? So if I had those 128 people, I could do a number of things. If I have, I'm an Apple user, so what I could do is go up to my Chrome, I could copy of the link that I have, and I could move it over to my desktop, and now I would have my list. Or if you're a PC user, create a file on your desktop that says LinkedIn leads, do the same basic thing that I'm talking to you about, copy it and move it over into that particular file, and then title it. Title it CFO's Greater Detroit Area. And now what will happen is anyone that is a CFO in the Greater Detroit Area, or that will become a CFO in the Greater Detroit Area, will come into your LinkedIn search criteria, in effect, your buyer map. Now, I would also say this to you, out of deference to Stephanie and my great relationship with Michigan bankers. What I would say to you is, if any of you online have a question, I know we've had to go kind of fast today and we have a few more things to cover, but if any of you have a question, please reach out at any time, and I'm happy to do a webinar with you or walk you through this, do a Zoom meeting, whatever the case might be. I'm happy to find some time to kind of help you. But that's the buyer map. Couple of connection situations here. There are 3 different kind of connectors on LinkedIn. There's the Lion, and the Lion is LinkedIn Open Networker. They connect with anybody. Then there's the Purist. The Purist says, I only network with people I know. I only connect with people I know. And then there's the Networker. Those LinkedIn people who say, you know what, I got to get to know more people, and I'm gonna connect with people based on my particular criteria. So you have couple of options here. Somebody tries to connect with you, you can accept, ignore, or reply without accepting. Leave them in limbo forever. I will use my own criteria to determine if I accept or ignore. When I do a personal invitation, when I reach out to people, I will do that via my desktop. A lot of people say, well, can you do it on the laptop or the iPad? Absolutely, you can. There's no question about it. But it's harder to customize on a smartphone or a tablet. So I use my desktop. So I want to connect with Lucy Goodwin. I'm going to go over here to her profile and I'm going to hit connect. When connect comes up, I go to this box. I do not want to just hit connect. I want to customize my connection. If I don't, it's known as LinkedIn spam. What does that customization look like? Well, it's a message. How about this one? I look forward to sharing some practical and advanced ideas with you tomorrow. Thanks, Michigan bankers, for hosting this important event. It would be my privilege if you would add me to your professional LinkedIn network. Every single one of you got that with a different name. Now, I copied and pasted those. No offense to any of you, but it saved me some time. But you are 82% more likely to connect with me based on that connection request. What happens when someone connects with you? Don't do CAFs. Don't connect and forget. So when someone connects with me, and I will be doing it with all of you sometime over the next couple of days, I will use a LinkedIn commentary by basically saying, thank you for connecting with me on LinkedIn. I don't want to fall into the CAFs syndrome. Thank you so much. If there's ever any time I can be of service to you or your bank or your company, please reach out. By the way, I do Jack Rants. They're free. Here's last week's. If you're interested, let me know and we'll add you to the list. It's basically that. It's not, hey, do you want to buy some sales training today? It's that making sure that when someone connects with you or you connect with them, that you're reaching out in an appropriate kind of way. For those of you that use Apple, you can use an auto text expander on Chrome, and instead of having to customize this every time, you can actually do CON1 and up this message will pop. You can also do this if you're a PC user and you could put it in a file. So therefore, you won't have to keep typing this every single darn time when someone connects with you. Last couple of things I want to talk about. Don't forget about your alumni. I went to Northern Illinois University, and it wasn't a huge investment, but a lot of you, Michigan, Michigan State, Central Michigan, Eastern Michigan, Western Michigan, I've probably left out a bunch of colleges, but a lot of you made a big personal investment in that college, and you have a terrific alumni network. I'm a Husky. Hey, Mary, we're both Huskies. So how do you do this? How do you leverage that network that you've built up through college? What you do is you go to your LinkedIn search bar and type in where you went, or just click on where you went to college, because if you did, it's very likely on your profile. Just click on that college. I happen to go to Northern Illinois University. There are 161,244 people that went to Northern Illinois University, but there's more. If you go to Northern Illinois or wherever you went to college and you click on alumni, up will pop a bar with all of the alumni, where they are, where they work, where they live, etc. And you can also start to now target. So let's say I want CFOs that went to Northern Illinois University. I just put in CFOs in the search bar, and there are 2,577 alumni that graduated between 1900 and 2020 that are CFOs of companies. I want to do this a little more. I want to do CFOs of manufacturing. I want to do pediatricians. I want to do whatever. It allows you to do that and target. And who wouldn't want to connect with you based on your college level of experience? Last couple of things. A lot of people ask me about thought leadership, and I'm really big on thought leadership, posting content from those that you respect. So I repost a lot of content, and Bryn Tillman is one of the people that I use as a poster. She's fabulous. Share things in groups. You could be in up to 100 LinkedIn groups. We didn't have time to talk about that today. You can publish on LinkedIn. A couple million people actually can publish their own content, but you've got to be relevant. And a lot of people say, well, how often should I be posting on LinkedIn? I do it 3 times a day, 7 days a week. At 7 o'clock in the morning, 11 o'clock in the afternoon, and 4 o'clock in the afternoon, or 11 o'clock in the morning. Those are the 3 times when people are most likely to be looking at their LinkedIn. I do a lot of liking and commenting and hashtagging. That's all very important. And if Stephanie has me come back, maybe we can take a little deeper dive into things like thought leadership. There's the last couple of things I want to talk to you about, and that is the use of your smartphone and how important that can be, especially now. So if you have a smartphone with the LinkedIn app on it, and you go to that LinkedIn app, here's what you'll see. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to search for somebody, because I want to send somebody a video message. You can do it in audio as well, but I want to send a video message. I want to send it to a guy that I know named Dan Marcus. He's my first level connection. So what I do is I go to Dan's profile. Here he is. He's first vice president at Valley Bank. Okay. I'm going to go to Dan, and then I'm going to click, see this little blue bar here? I'm going to click on that message. Up will pop a message bar. Over in the lower left-hand corner, you'll see a plus sign. When I click on the plus sign, I can do a number of things. I can send him an audio, I can send him a photo, I can attach something, but I'm going to try to send him a video message. When I click on that, we don't have time to do it. When I click on that, up will pop a video, and you're on camera, and you have between 6 seconds and a minute to send Dan or someone else a video. You don't like it? Redo it. Redo it, redo it, redo it. Once you hit send, they will get the video message. I can tell you during this pandemic, for our clients and bankers, we're sending video messages and audio messages all over the place because it's really, really, really important. The last thing I wanted to talk to you about, and then we'll move on, and I know we're running just a little bit over, is the events tab on LinkedIn. This is a relatively new feature of LinkedIn, and it comes right through your profile. What this allows you to do, if your bank is staging an event, it allows you to highlight that and actually publicize that. So to be able to do that, you go to your profile and you scroll down where you see events. So in the lower left-hand corner, you'll see your little thumbnail with your profile, and you scroll down and you'll see recent groups events. If you want to add an event, which I recently did for our Michigan Bankers Power Prospecting in October, all you have to do is to click on the events tab and follow the very intuitive instructions. Once you do that, it will broadcast and it will say to you, do you want to broadcast this to your network? And you can also invite individuals simply by sharing that event with them. So let's say you're doing a business after hours in Grand Rapids. You put the business after hours up on your profile and you can start to share with your first level connections in your network to personally invite them to the business after hours. So LinkedIn is not Facebook for business. I can tell you that. LinkedIn is not this connect and forget. It's not the new cold calling tool. LinkedIn, as I hope you've seen, is a way for a banker to be a thought leader and a value-added provider. Please connect with me. That's perfect. And if you are connected with me, just message me. And I'm very, very happy to provide any resources I can. Steph, we're about 7 minutes over, but the good news is virtually everybody stayed. So there must be a lot of interest in LinkedIn. Thank you, Stephanie. Thanks, Michigan Bankers. Thanks you all for having some time with me today. We appreciate it. Back to you, Steph.
Thank you, Jack. Appreciate it. We have a couple minutes if you'd like to add some questions to the chat. Well, we've got Jack.
One question I often get if you're waiting, and if you have to go, we understand. One question I often get is, how do I spend my time on LinkedIn? I'm really big on what I call the Taylor syndrome. We have a beagle. Her name is Taylor. She gets up every morning at 4 a.m. and she eats. She gets to the door at 9 a.m. because she wants a walk. She eats at noon. She eats at 4. She has her medicine at 7. She knows when the clock is. We don't have any alarm clocks in our house. My point is that Taylor has a regimen. And when you, as a LinkedIn professional, use a regimen, you will be much more effective. I like the 15 minutes a day syndrome. Do something 15 minutes a day on LinkedIn, whether it's connecting with somebody, adding content, liking content, whatever it is, and do it at least 5, if not 7 days a week. You may have some questions now, Steph.
More comments. Just a special thank you from Nancy Lindsay and Kathy Berman. So no, you must have answered everything. Hit it on the spot. So
Terrific.
Great work. Great work.
Well, apologize that the screen didn't work. We'll try to figure that out going forward, but hopefully you got what you needed, and don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks again, Stephanie.
Thank you, Jack. Take care.
Bye now.
Thank you.